Hi, Black Circle family, and we're back for another episode. And today I have Ben Bennett with me. Welcome, Ben. Is it Ben or Benjamin? Okay, all right. We'll go with Ben today. That's all right. Cool. Welcome. So, Ben, just a quick introduction because I know that there's quite a few things in your wheelhouse, let's say. So we've got, let's just kind of, I know it's your co-founder and events management. So let's give us like a overview of all of that.
Essentially. So I've been kind of into event management for, I'd say, the last 13 years-ish.
Mm-hmm.
So the first event that I created was Vocals and Verses, which is a live music and spoken word event. And so I write and perform. Well, I haven't performed poetry in a while, but at the time I was writing and performing a lot of poetry. Okay. So I wanted to create my own event because I was, like attending different events and performing at different events, and I was like, I kind of want my own brand, and I wanted to like represent a certain, have just like a field that I didn't think was kind of in the scene at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like my first proper experience with like event management and creating a brand and working with people and marketing and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that started in 2011, and then Project 1957, it was three of us, myself and my two friends, Kay and Francine, who are sisters. We were going to Ghana for, back then it wasn't called Dirty December.
No.
It was just,
it was a bit more obscure. It wasn't quite on the radar yet. Yeah.
So we kind of, when we came back from Ghana 1 December, we were just like, all we do is just party. And there's so many, we would go to towards the end of the Ghana trips, you go to the art center and stuff like that and engage with culture a little bit before
the market and things. Yeah.
Before you get back. But we were like, why don't we start an initiative that's focused on cultivating Ghanaian culture in amongst the diaspora? So that's how that started.
And that was going to be my question about what motivated you to do it. So so explain what the club is and kind of what it promotes and
so it's what we, for a lot of our parents, when they've kind of came over in like the 70s, 80s, 90s, they would often seek out community from other Ghanaians who were around, living in London or maybe outside of London, Manchester, wherever it may be, and just started to create like a really strong network.
Mm-hmm.
And those are their friends that they kind of established those relationships with are people we call auntie and uncle today.
Yeah.
So obviously this generation is different in the sense that we are, born, a lot of us are born in the UK, and so we never maybe had that opportunity to we've never had experience of moving from Ghana over to the UK. So our experience and our understanding of our culture is very, very different. And we just want to be able to instill that community spirit amongst the diaspora because it can be very fragmented, especially when you live in like a melting pot like London where there's so many different cultures and stuff. It can be easy for you to lose sight of your own. We do that through loads of different events. We have Tree Club, we have Gar Club, which are speakers clubs and allows people to kind of practice and learn conversational Tree and Gar. We do like a summer social where we just get together and kind of just have a good time. We have an autumn agenda where we discuss topics that are a bit more intricate and need like experts on the panel to break down some of the things that we don't really know about. So it may be like birth ceremonies or marriage traditions or death traditions, and stuff that we, information that we can only really get from our elders, and that's how we can, if we wanted to pass it on, we will be able to do that from learning that. So we have those kind of events, and then in the past we've done like a theatre production based on the stories of Anansi. So that was back in between 2016 and 2018, I think.
Right.
So again, it's just engaging people with Ghanaian culture in a different way to just like
in a very fun way, because I can actually say I think I mentioned to you earlier, I went to one of the lessons, well, club, we'll say it's club, because it's not really a lesson. It's very, very interactive. It's very welcoming. It caters for all levels. So I'm a complete beginner. But I didn't feel like isolated. I think you mix the levels, don't you, together, which I thought was really, really good. It's just a good time. And I think my main motivation was because, you know, again, I mentioned that my granddad is Ghanaian, but we lost that connection when he came over here. So we lost connection to family, we lost connection to kind of like the traditions, the culture. And then I kind of rediscovered it when I went for the first time out of all of my family since my granddad came here. I went for my birthday last year. And it just blew my mind, and it just wanted to make me connect deeper on a deeper level. So to have something like that exists, that's promoting culture and connectivity across the diaspora, is really, really important.
It's 100% important. And the issue with culture and tradition is that if someone doesn't carry the torch on, it dies.
Yes.
And especially with the language clubs that we do, it's particularly maybe more with Ga, that is spoken in the south, predominantly in Accra. And I think Accra is the capital, so what happens is, as well as loads of people coming from different parts of Ghana and speaking their own languages, so it feels like Ga begins to get flooded out. It's also English just being more commonly spoken, because everybody wants to be able to be well equipped for tourism. So people end up just speaking more English or mixing English and Tree or English and Ga. So it's like there are words and phrases that don't get spoken enough,
right?
Because of that. And that, you know, there's children being born that aren't being taught these languages. They're just being taught English because they're just like, oh well, English is, you know, like it's the doorway to the rest of the world kind of thing. So if you can speak English, then you'll be fine. But it's like it's a colonial mindset that I love.
Very. As he was talking, I was literally like the colonization taking over.
It's a mindset that we need to unlearn. And so this is like the small thing that we hope to make an impact with. So
I don't think it's small at all. I think it's huge, and it has potential. And I don't know what your plans are, but for it to grow, or for others to do it, you know, with Nigerian language or culture, or, you know, whatever it might be, South Africa, whatever. So it's definitely got some scope on it, you know, to scale. And so I think we've already touched on, you know, saying how it's contributing to the preservation and promotion of Ghanaian culture and language. But what role do you think cultural events and language clubs play in maintaining the heritage of diaspora communities?
I think it's really important because it grounds us. As I said, we live in a very multicultural society, and it's really easy to being Black British. If just to speak on the British diaspora, the British-Ghanaian diaspora, being Black British alone is like its own identity. And that's like got so many different influences. So it's easy to be like fully immersed in that Black British identity and maybe neglect, you know, some of like just the things of your heritage, because we do this thing where we associate with our parents, so it's kind of like it's there.
Yeah, it's almost removed, isn't it? Right.
You can feel removed from it at times. So I think, like, obviously now, you know, we're in a great place where a lot of the conversation of culture has been driven through music a lot, and, you know, Afrobeats being so popular at the moment, it's kind of allowed people to maybe hone in on like what culture is and how it impacts them. And, you know, you've seen with like Americans and how they engage with Dirty December and going back, and not even necessarily just to party, but to feel like they're close to their ancestors and stuff. So we're in that period where, you know, there's like a general awakening, or like people just wanting to feel close to culture. So I think it's important for us to drive the conversation with the events that we have. And what we try to do is to bring people into play that are of a similar age group as well. So with Tree Club that we do, for example, we have Amanda, who's one of our specialist speakers, and even with Gar Club as well. And she's in her 20s, you know, so it doesn't feel like, oh, you know, when we're learning this language or this elder woman.
Yeah, it's not. It's it's a bit more relatable, right?
Exactly. You just have that kind of relatable feeling there. So, it's really like there are things that I learn from, you know, the events that we do and the conversations that we've had with our autumn agenda when we were talking when, you know, I mentioned earlier about traditions around birth, death, and marriage. Like, where else would you learn that if you don't ask your parents?
Right.
And even then, sometimes the parents will be like, "Oh, I don't know." Like,
right.
So, it's for us. It's really important that we continue to drive the conversation and we continue to give people or create the environment where people can engage with it in a way that they haven't been able to and may never be able to ever going forward. So, it kind of comes back to that whole sense of what our ethos is, which is to cultivate that sense of community and create an environment.
I love it. And as they say, it's like we're losing recipes, and so we need to really, like you said, just be open with the discussion and be connected. So I know that, you know, you've had some events in London and Accra. So how the communities in London and Accra responded to the events you've created?
I mean, London, obviously, it's, you know, that is where we're based, and we have an understanding of how the diaspora is here anyway. So it's been really good, especially, I would say, after COVID, because before COVID, there were things like TikTok that didn't really, well, TikTok was kind of just starting, but it wasn't really what it is now. And that's been, you know, I feel like the landscape has changed a bit. So we have more people engaging with us online than I think ever before. And I think people feel grateful that, you know, we're putting on this, because there's not even to sound like we're like above everyone else, but there aren't that many platforms.
There really isn't. Like, I felt so excited. So it was an advert on my TikTok that came up, and I was like, no way, immediately buy ticket, had to be there. There isn't anything like it. I can't think of anything. Any other example?
There's a few. There's maybe one or two others, but in terms of, I don't think they cover the breadth of, you know, in the way that we do.
Right.
So like the variety and that we do. So I think the diaspora here is like really grateful for, you know, what we've been able to put on and the consistency of it as well. It's one thing that sometimes we struggle with as a community, and I mean this more like on the Ghanaian side, is consistency. Like, something will start and then it trails off,
fizzles out, and
and then it's like people get invested and then there's no continuity. So for us, it was really, really, really important that we had that consistency no matter what's going on. I think the only time we were kind of had to take a break was literally when the world stops, and even then we were putting things online kind of thing. So I think that's a key thing in terms of Accra. When we've done the last time we did an event in Accra was pre-COVID, and it felt like, again, that they were really open to, I'm trying to remember what the event was about. I think it was about preserving art and history in Accra, and the preservation, the processes, and how that takes place over there. And people were really enthusiastic about contributing to that conversation. So I think that's something that we want to continue to do over there for sure. Because, as I said, like, I've done Debtors December many times, so I know it inside out. But I think there's a lot to be gained from having events outside of like parties and stuff.
Yeah, the offering. There's something deeper and more beautiful culturally to explore. Yeah,
for sure. So,
and again, I kind of touched on the format of the club. So what was the thinking of, like, let's have it as a club format, a bit more informal, rather than we're actually going to sit down, we're going to do a lesson, we're going to do. Is there something not more beneficial, but what am I trying to get at? Like, when you have like a language class versus a club?
Our specialist speakers are just people who are, they're all amazing, but they're essentially just people who are fluent.
Right.
Because their parents made sure they were fluent, and they are able to guide people with pronunciation and give a little bit of depth into why we say certain things in these languages.
So it's just literally, it's community, it's like, let's get together, let's preserve, and rather than, right, well, you're going to teach you syllables.
I think overall, what people aren't really trying to learn how to write in Tree. They're not really trying to learn how to read in Tree. It would be great, but the main thing is to be able to hold a conversation. And that's the key thing. Like, if you can do that and you have that kind of that oral success, then I feel like you can
manage, you can communicate.
You have to go to the market and say something in Tree, or say something in Ga, and not have them like look at you funny kind of thing. No one cares if you can write and read in Ga or Tree, like when you're in the market or when you're trying to have conversations with family and stuff like that. So I think for us, we were like, well, we're trying to teach it on a conversational level, so let's make sure it follows like an informal format. And we kind of got the format from speakers clubs in general. There are like French and Spanish speakers clubs where people just meet up in cafes and they just go through, they practice phrases, they practice words, they practice the pronunciation of certain things, and that's how they do it. It's not a set curriculum or anything like that, but that's how they get by it.
I think there's something a bit better as well about just being so immersive into it, rather than like in this format of being behind a desk and the teacher. You know, they often say the best way to learn language is either like go and be in the actual country, or go out into the field and practice it and things like that. So I think it's a great format. Like I said, I've experienced it myself, and it really works really well. It really does. I'm going to switch gears a little bit, because I know you have many hats on. And one of them is Room 187 and vocals and verses. And you touched on vocals and verses a little earlier. But 187, again, your marketing is really good, because it comes up on my timeline all the time. I'm like, I have to go to one of these one day. Do you want to explain what it is?
Yeah, it's so it's an old school R&B game show and karaoke.
Yep.
So it was something that during COVID, me and my two co-founders, so DJ Codeman and Michael, we were on Clubhouse, because that was like the popular thing. And it was just, I don't know, there were lots of like toxic rooms and conversations,
moaning rooms, like what the hell?
Like, people losing their minds, I think, because just in general the world was in a weird place. So people were just following suit. So we wanted to just create something that would be lighthearted and also like directed at music lovers. So we initially started off by doing like top 10 rooms, so like top 10 UK R&B songs, and everyone would come together and pick a top 10. And then we were kind of like, let's do something interactive. So we did a game show. So we came up with different rounds, and we had created teams, and people come on and, you know, try and get answers right and stuff. And that, you know, that was quite successful. And as things were starting to open up, we were like, let's make this an event, because there's opportunity here to do something like really unique. There's nothing in the scene like it. So let's do it. So we started that in 2021, and it's just been
it's really grown a lot of traction, actually. And it's attracted 15,000 attendees, both nationally and internationally. So what do you credit for its success?
I think it's a couple of things. I think we focus on old school R&B essentially, so it's not anything between 1990 and 2008 is the focus.
The best music.
Yeah, exactly. And I think especially for a lot of, you know, millennials, kind of people our age, and maybe like older Gen Z people, that kind of era of R&B just has a lot of nostalgia attached to it. So I think above all things, people come because they want to, you know, have that nostalgic feeling and remember where they were 20 years ago when they were listening to this Craig David song, whatever it was. So there's that feeling of nostalgia. I think also its uniqueness. the fact that it's a game show and the fact that it's also karaoke and also it's a party as well.
Yeah.
It just has those different elements that make it different to anything that you've been to before. And yeah, I think also DJ Coatman is the best R&B DJ in the UK. So like literally, like you won't get anyone better.
Just from my perspective as well, I think there's such a hole and a gap it's getting better in the night scene for the UK for the black community. I think there's a bit of a gap. And the offering is kind of like Shoreditch, where a lot of the millennials are kind of aged out now. And so it's like, where do we go for these spaces? We don't always want to, like you said, go out and just drink. You know, this is so interactive. It's music, it's karaoke, it's fun, it's games. So I feel like you guys are really filling like a good niche there.
Yeah.
Like, what's your view of like the as I said, the night scene, the black UK night scene at the moment?
I mean, there are a lot of events, probably more events than we've ever had. I think maybe the issue is that we don't own enough venues. So we've seen people complain online before, kind of saying like, I don't always want to buy a ticket for an event and for that event to be in 2 weeks or 3 weeks and I have to wait into that, you know. Like, I want to just be able to go out on the weekend and go to a venue that I know is going to play the music that I like, and don't necessarily have enough of that. So that's definitely something that we can only hope improves. But that, you know, there's a lot of conversations about ownership that needs to take place, and a lot of collaboration that needs to take place amongst the community of, you know, like movers and shakers in the scene. So yeah, there's that. But I mean, in terms of, I think what's happening now, especially after COVID, is that there are a lot more specialist events. So they're usually, you know, like the biggest events will always be like multi-genre. So they'll play a bit of R&B, a bit of dancehall, a bit of Afrobeats, everything like that, just to cover all bases. But I think now what's started to come out a lot more is like specialist events where they focus on one genre. Or maybe one or two genres, and maybe genres that don't get enough love in a multi-genre setting. So that's been interesting to watch, and hopefully that continues, because, you know, there's some people that don't want to go to the massive events that play everything. They just want to hear one thing. They want to just hear R&B, or they just want to hear Zouk, or they just want to hear Lovers Rock. Do you know what I mean? So those events starting to pop up and cater for those people is really, really good.
You said something interesting about venues. So what's kind of been your experience when you are trying to get the venues? Because I know there's a lot of pushback, there's a lot of racism involved. What's been your personal experience? I
mean, I feel it used to be really bad. It used to be really bad, and there's been a lot of prejudice that I face just as a black event manager. Or, from people who own venues, whether it's them making assumptions, bigoted assumptions on the type of crowd that you're going to attract, or making you pay more because just in case that trouble happens, or it's likely that trouble. Like, just
they assume, don't they? It's massively,
There's always assumptions, I think it's been a lot better now because I have a lot under my belt, so I kind of know how to navigate it. But and also I think there are more venues that are a bit more understanding of what the scene looks like and what the potential that black events have. But there's still, you know, it's still not great, and you know, there's still a lot of room for improvement. But yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to us needing to own our own venues, because we understand us, and sometimes we don't have the ability to have conversations with people in those positions of power that have that understanding of us. So I think that's the goal. And like where I've been to like other cities abroad, and seeing that how well it works when you have people who look like you and own venues, and I think it definitely helps.
Process is just a lot smoother. It's just a lot nicer.
I mean, obviously the flip side of that is that there could potentially be like over familiarity, because it's like, okay, oh cool, like you're my brother kind of thing. So like, you know, we don't,
business is business. That's not
exactly. So there's obviously boundaries 100% need to be set, but I still think for the most part, it's something that we need to aspire to. Just as a community, we need to have our own venues.
Absolutely. When I think about, going back to like 2011, up to 2015, 18, like the Mayfair scene in particular, it's so toxic, and I still think it is. Like, I think we're some time off of touching that area and that market. But I'm glad that on the peripheries of that, we're making some changes and we're slowly kind of like getting our spaces. Definitely. So we mentioned vocals and verses earlier, and you said it's spoken word and it's live music. So how do you select the talent for the events?
So it's usually a combination of things. So maybe like someone that I've seen online or seen in person when I've gone to an event, or people emailing in and being like, I really want to perform, and then they show their stuff and I'm like, okay, cool, like you're dope. But I'm like a bit of a snob, so it's like there's like a certain caliber that I kind of want in order, just for quality control, just to be able to I guess uphold the brand, the branding. The branding is basically focused around quality artistry in the UK. So being able to uphold that, you need to have, great artists, and that we've been fortunate enough to have like really great artists in the past who are like now like household names kind of thing.
Okay, can you share any household names? You don't have to if you don't want to, but
Cynthia Erivo,
okay.
JP Cooper, Ray Black, Elmine, who's got really popular now at the moment. Who else?
Quite a few, yeah, definitely. Very, very. It's been successful. So talking more about you specifically, how important is collaboration and networking in your line of work?
It's really important. Networking is so important. It's your sword, it's your tool. Like in order to be successful, you need to have a strong network, and to have a strong network, you need to network. So there's sometimes I feel like people sometimes make networking like this, they build it up to be something that it's not. Like you have to be like this
smooth talker, a little bit,
like, go around the room and do it. But it's not necessarily. It can be as simple as like literally having a brief conversation with someone and then following up in via email or in DMs, and then you've created that relationship, and then you can go call back to it a year later. But you've met already, and there's already familiarity there. So it's really important. It just in terms of when you're trying, especially when you're trying to build a brand or develop a brand, you need to have those relationships with people in different sectors, in different industries that you can call upon to aid you in getting to where you need to be. And I think I guess that comes with, that kind of leads into like collaboration, just being able to work with people. We sometimes in this country, we have a kind of crabs in a bucket mentality.
Yeah.
It's like one person wants to be at the top and they don't believe anyone else can be there, or like there's not enough room at the top.
Yeah.
They don't want people, when in general we can all thrive. Like in current where the scene is in terms of like the events in the Black community, there's loads of events that are doing over 1,000 attendees per event.
And that's like just in London as well. Exactly. We're not even talking about other cities. Exactly. Yeah.
Talk about Birmingham has a great scene. They've got a few brands there that dominate there as well, and it's like multiple brands. It's not one.
Yeah.
Same with Manchester. Same with Liverpool. So it's like, I think I hope that people like just see the beauty and the necessity in collaborating, because you uplift each other and you both benefit.
Yeah.
And I think maybe sometimes people feel like if they collaborate with someone, it's going to be lopsided, and one person may benefit and one brand may benefit and the other may not. But yeah, there's always things to gain.
I like you putting the emphasis on collaboration as opposed to networking, I guess, because networking, it can sound a bit transactional. was collaboration. Again, it's a bit more, like I said, keep saying community, but it does feel a bit more like that. So I kind of like that much better. So are there any new venture or projects that you're currently working on or planning to launch soon?
So I would say for the moment, it's just a matter of developing what, I'm already kind of part of. So I know with Room 187, there's a lot of stuff that we want to do. We want to be more visible on YouTube, and there are things there, the aspects of like the game show that we do that we want to maybe try and like translate in online a bit better, and like I guess like work with more artists as well. So we recently had John B at Box Park. So yeah, like doing that, working with more artists. But yeah, I think for the moment, it's definitely like development. It's definitely just trying to push to the next level and to grow as well.
Yeah, it sounds very exciting. And I am going to make my way down to Room 187. I have to. I've been seeing it for the longest. It looks so much fun. It really does. So we are nearing the end. And I always like to ask my guests a value. So one for their personal life and one for their professional life. It can just be one word. It could be a phrase. So let's start with your professional life.
I would say humility.
Okay.
I think because it's kind of something that I try to. I basically, so I remember when I first got into events. So I was a ACS president at my uni, and in my second year and in my third year, I started out Vocals and Verses, and I don't think I had like an effective marketing plan. I kind of put out the event, and I was just like, well, everyone's going to come because I was literally ACS president. Everyone knows me, and it ended up being that like we were meant to sell like 200 tickets and we sold like 40. So like, and it was all my money, so I lost like so much, and I like you're already a student, so it's like you already
you need those pennies.
Exactly. So I remember like kind of like praying about it, kind of meditating on it, and being like, I don't understand why that happened. And there was a verse in the Bible that came to me, and it's basically says, those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. So I feel like that's kind of been like the one thing that I stick to throughout everything I do professionally, is always making sure that I don't exalt myself and the things that I do, and there's always a sense of humility with the way I interact with people, the way I collaborate with people, with the things that I say, because it's very easy to put yourself on a pedestal, and people get put on pedestals all the time, professionally, personally, and those pedestals get torn down.
Absolutely.
So I've never wanted to put myself on a pedestal or the things I do on a pedestal. So yeah, just remaining humble and always being like, okay, cool, we've achieved that and that was great. How do we, develop that? How do we make that better? Like always looking for a way to improve and never settling for, a level of success that's been achieved. It's just always like trying to push for the next thing. So yeah, I would say that.
Humility, that's a nice word. And I also think humility lends itself to empathy as well. So it's quite beautifully tied together. Yeah. And for your personal life?
For my personal life, I would say patience.
Okay, yep.
Because I feel like I'm like quite a patient person. I hope no one's watching this. Like he's not, but, like I feel like I'm quite a patient person. I get that from my dad. My dad's a very patient person, and I feel like patience heals and facilitates a lot of positive things in the relationships that you have. Sometimes you need to grant people, or you need to be patient with people because of what they're going through, or because they're trying to work something out, and you just need to give them that time. Sometimes you need to be patient with yourself because you want to achieve a certain thing and it's not going the way you expect it to, but there's just having given yourself grace to be like, well, you've exerted all the effort you possibly can. Sometimes you just need to, relax and
sit with it.
Sit with it and meditate on it and let it, be what it is. And, if that thing is supposed to happen, then it will. And yeah, I just feel like a lot of things would be better if everyone's patient, and obviously not everyone can. It's just not a thing that everyone's is able to be, because it's just not. But I think it does a lot. It does a lot of good. So,
it does. I think it just, like you said, it just creates space for things to either be or to exist or grow, or it's beautiful. Ben, we've come to the end. It went by so quickly. But thank you so much for taking the time out. If people want to follow your journey or any of the clubs or 187 or Vegas and Berthas, how can we do that? Yeah.
This is Benjamin B on Twitter and Instagram.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Guys, thank you again for joining us. And if you want to follow the Black Circle, we are on YouTube, Black Circle Podcast, and we're on Instagram, the blackcircle.podcast. Thank you, guys.